Today is a departure. We're going to talk about local family farms and the problems they face as they try to fight to keep their farms alive. With me today is Omni Gardner. She is from A.V. Rose Farms. I'd like to thank you for coming by today.
Thank you for having me.
My other guest is Avril Andrade. She is from Healthy Futures Farm. Avril, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
All right, this is a different subject for us here at Labor Talk. To begin with, how long has your family been farming and where is it located?
Rochester, Mass. And my family's been there for over 100 years farming. And yeah, we're just, we were excited for the cannabis industry being, well, back in 2016, we were excited for farmers being written into regulations.
Yes.
Specifically, we were written in there to ensure that, small family farms would be saved and be able to make, profit off of an actual crop.
Right.
And yeah, so that's why we're here.
Harold, you're a farmer of note. How long have you been actually farming?
We just completed our 7th official grow season with our farm, and my husband worked for about 16 years in agricultural prior to us starting our farms.
Now, predominantly, what kind of crops do you usually grow over the years?
Well, we're regenerative agriculture farmers, permaculture farmers. So it's like a polyculture technique that we use. So we have fruit trees, strawberries, a bunch of herbs. So we grow basil, rosemary. We have a lot of native herbs as well. Potatoes, tomatoes, onions, garlic, a mix of everything.
Awesome. What about you?
Excuse me, we're in the same boat. We started our farm 7 years ago to combat the food crisis in our community. So we try to grow a really large assortment of chemical-free produce so that we can help pass it down to the economically oppressed community at a conventionally grown price. But we try to grow as much everything as we can.
Outstanding. But I know it's not cheap to sustain a small family farm. Now, there was legislation introduced in 2016, 935 CMR 500. It was a ballot question on the legalization, regulation, taxation of marijuana. Now, were local family farms included in that legislation?
Well, in the regulations, yes, farmers were written into legislation. And then in those regulations, farmers were written in, and there was a working group, and there was 2 reports that were released for how farmers and small businesses of all sizes would be incorporated in the cannabis industry, able to cultivate, process our products. And those reports were released in 2018, one in July and then one in December. And yet here we are as small farmers educating the community on what actually farmers are, and that there hasn't been an actual pathway for us farmers, that there's a difference between a cultivator. Even if you're growing sun-grown cannabis, there's a difference between a cultivator and a farmer like us that grows multiple crops, tending to the soil in a regenerative agriculture way, using no pesticides. We at our farm do K&F, so it's no pesticides, and that's the best way that we could tend to our earth, growing multiple crops, having soil diversity. And that's really what this is about, educating people that just because you're cultivating doesn't make you a farmer. And we do not want, we're going through a food crisis right now,
yes.
right?
Yes.
We're going through a housing crisis
yes.
right now. This crisis has been here way before the pandemic.
Right.
The pandemic just made things
exacerbated.
Exactly. And we don't want what we see going on in other states. Patterns repeating, right?
Yep.
In Kentucky, we have 80% of the farms were taken over by hemp farms, cannabis farms, and what does this mean? What about our food?
Right.
So we don't believe in just growing one crop. We don't believe in that. We have to have diversity.
Now, having said all that, if you could add a little bit of the cannabis crop to what you grow, would that help you out? And the bottom line is, would that help sustain your local family farm? Local family farm, not corporate, local.
Well,
Would it help sustain? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I try to press the point across to people is that the the spirit of the legislation and the bills that were passed were to help us small, struggling family farms. Me personally, 7 out of the 10 farmers I know all have to work off-farm jobs just to keep their family farms afloat. We have to, devalue our land by putting it into agricultural restrictions so that we can receive a tax break. But that's not really a tax break. That's devaluing your most valuable land by saying it doesn't have any value, so you pay less taxes. And we're trying to show that by giving us an opportunity to grow a crop that has this high potential of value, we can diversify that into our fields and into our crops so that we can become financially stable. And our children who are leaving family farms, right now the average farmer is 65 years old. Our children don't want to come into farming because they watch their parents work their entire lives and work the fields and then work off-farm jobs and do value-added items and do things like that to make it sustainable, where we can incorporate a crop, a plant,
and then I have
into
a
our
view where it's
systems.
like a new generation of farmers, where there's socially disadvantaged farmers, Black and Latinx farmers, and Native farmers that want to grow and want to farm. It's not just about cannabis. These people haven't had an opportunity to farm, and now it's educating people like, here it is, here's the time. There's legislation right now talking about land access right now in Massachusetts. Just because we have a lot of state land, just like in each municipality there's land that these cities and towns have too.
Right.
But there's a lot of state land, and how do we make sure that we're starting a new generation of farmers, because a lot of these other farmers are aging out, 60 years old, 70 years old, but no, there is a new generation of socially disadvantaged farmers that deserve a chance at actually farming, deserve a chance at owning land. We know 97% of our land is owned by white people, and we know in the cannabis industry it's a repeated cycle. When we talk about who owns the businesses and who's in the executive seats, that's more, the cannabis industry is more than 95% of the cannabis industry is white owned as well. And we just need to have diversity. It should just match us all. We should all, this is a huge industry, and when we talk about food, when we talk about cannabis, it all goes hand in hand together,
Right, absolutely. Now, the family farms, in my lifetime, I'm 62, by the way, family farms in my lifetime, I've seen them diminish at a rapid rate. It's not hyperbole, it's not baloney, a rapid rate. A lot of agro corporations, agro-corps, you don't know what they're putting on your food, and we're going to squeeze out the little guy yet again. Is there anything more Americana than a family farm? I think not.
That's a big thing that we've been talking to the legislators recently about, and we've been consistently talking to the CCC about this.
Could you explain the CCC?
The Cannabis Control Commission, who are our regulators. It's more than them just giving out licenses. They create the regulations that guide us throughout this industry. So we've been speaking to them about this, that we've been locked out by municipalities, us as farmers. Businesses, farmers, our business isn't like any other business. We can't just pick it up and move.
Right.
And like I said, my family's been there for over 100 years. I shouldn't have to move and rent somewhere else to go farm cannabis.
Absolutely.
And then we have to go into the HCAs, which are just,
Well, it sounds like you have to lay out some money if you want to move.
Exactly.
And that's ridiculous. You're not a corporation, you're a family farmer.
Exactly.
Now, have you guys, evidently you've taken your fight to Beacon Hill.
Yep.
Have you had any other kind of actions? Have you gone to any municipalities, any markets, anything like that to try to raise your voices and tell people something's wrong here?
Well, we have been begging and pleading with the CCC, the Attorney General's office, our local municipalities. Recently, recently a MSO, a multi-state operator, tried to establish the term farmers markets, which farmers markets were actually established for farmers by farmers as a way for us to connect with our community and provide them with produce.
And this isn't just one business that is doing this, has been doing this. We've been in contact with the commission for, I want to say, about maybe 4 months. I have to go back to go see how far back. This has been multiple business we call them culture vultures.
Yes.
They come in and they're saying farmers market while we are farmers tending to the land, tending to animals, tending to multiple crops. And yet there's no way for us to get into this industry, but you guys are having a farmers market. But it's cannabis involved with no farmers.
Yes.
It doesn't.
Large
something
corporations
stinks.
trying to come in and use the name that we've worked all these years and generations
To
to
establish,
build.
right.
And
That's your brand. That's
is.
not their brand.
Exactly. And they're coming and attempting to use that as a way to manipulate the community into attending their events and attending their things. So we did start setting up protests whenever we do see those. You know, we start attempting to go to them. You know, we reach out to the
But
organizers.
Beyond that, we talk to the
You're there
commission
to inform
team.
the community. You're being deceived.
We asked them to put a stop to this. We went beyond this. We talked to the mission. We've been asking for you to put a stop to this. There needs to be guidance in line.
Now, are they the folks that are responsible to set the guidelines on this?
Yes.
The regulation.
So they could put an end to them stealing
they
your
could.
moniker.
Yes, the commission and the
as
state.
of today, they haven't done it.
They haven't. Yeah.
Wow.
It's a work in
progress.
progress.
Well, that's why you're here.
You know, and that's why, yeah, exactly. That's why we're here. Is we want to get our local communities out there to understand that we need them to write to the CCC, to email the CCC, the Massachusetts Cannabis Control Commission, and let them know that they support farmers and they want to see a pathway for true farmers to enter into this
But
industry.
we have to also just educate people on farming as a whole too. Like us farmers, we're being hit on all industries. Family farms
Absolutely.
are being
That's
taken
why I had you
advantage
here
of.
today. It's not just about the
Yeah.
cannabis.
No.
It's
We're-
a much
exactly.
broader picture. So
We're
Go
being
ahead.
targeted on both ends, family farms, and this is in the food industry. We see that, you know, we say family farms are being decimated. We're being crushed by big corporations.
Yes, you are.
And then when we reach out and the municipalities get money, and it's supposed to be, and the federal government gives money, it's supposed to trickle down to those most harmed, and it's supposed to trickle down to small family farms and those socially disadvantaged, and we see that the money doesn't do that. 97% of that the first COVID pandemic, food pandemic money that came
Yep.
through, 97% of that went, once again, to white farms. You know what I mean? But then when we break down the proportion, how many went to, you know, white farms, Native American farms, you know, Latinx, Black, and it all trickles down. There's no need for this. We're all
is it self-evident?
yes.
The
you know what I mean?
hypocrisy.
Exactly. We're in, and this is another thing. Well, the most thing we're being preyed on, and we're being targeted by corporations and then these nonprofits. So when they say this name's farmers markets or we support farmers, us as farmers, we've been targeted by the food industry nonprofits that are supposed to be supporting us farmers.
Right.
They say they support us and they're getting thousands of dollars and not a dime's coming down to our family farms, because why? We're not a nonprofit coming under their umbrella. But we are the ones giving away free food to the community while also selling our CSAs, but there's nothing coming down, trickling to these small family farms. But what they do, these nonprofits that aren't farmers, they go and buy this farmland. And then they want to pay you to work on their gardens. So they're going to take you away from your family farm to come work on their garden. But you've reached out to them and said, you could support us and this is how you could support us, but they don't want to do that. So
Why wouldn't they want to do that?
because they don't want us as individuals to be stable. They don't want family farms. They don't want the working people to be stable.
Why? Are you a
like-
threat to
It's a threat
agribusiness?
to big corporations.
Unbelievable.
They want control of our food industry.
Well, they got
And they
it.
have
And,
it, yeah.
and they have it. And then they also do these, I mean, when you're talking about farming on that scale, they do these other things where, you know, they spend a lot of time and money because they have time and money because they aren't actual farmers in their fields working. Spend that time changing the narrative to the community that, you know, you need this specific label and you need this specific certification, where us as farmers are saying, no, why don't you take that opportunity to know me as a farmer, and we'll tell you what we're doing and what practices we're following and what practices she's following, and what, you know, and give you the opportunity to decide which farm you choose to support, not what farm they tell you you should support.
We just tell people, keep your all eyes open.
Yeah.
Let's constantly look deeper into things. we need to watch where our funding's going, our money's going, what these businesses, these nonprofits, these big nonprofits that change and trickle down to another nonprofit, or they open another business for their friend, and it's this repeated habit of
Yes.
people, the money
Cronyism.
tangling.
Cronyism.
Yeah, colonialism, yeah.
The thing is, I've discussed small farms with people over the last 10 years and how we see them disappearing. You know, and to a person I've talked to, I don't know if it's everybody, but nobody likes it. Everybody says we should do something about this. Well, education is the first part. And if you really care about local families, local farmers, your community, listen to these women. We will give you websites where you can go and you can ask questions. Ask questions. These people are working class. You're working class. Let's take it back. Now, what do you have on your agenda coming up in an effort to combat this? I mean, there's got to be, do you have any politicians on your side? Have you proffered any legislation to get them to support it? Maybe write it for you?
We write our own stuff. So we're in that process
the best way to
right
do
now,
it.
writing, exactly. In the process of writing our own stuff, we will be proposing some things that people could follow us on our page, Pathways for Farmers, as
Farmers
well as
fighting for a pathway.
Farmers fighting for a pathway.
Farmers fighting for
as
a
well as
pathway.
you can follow us on our personal farm pages as well. But we have spoken to, we sent emails. So we had a meeting with one of the researchers of the House and Paul Smudders.
Well,
I would say the name,
in our
I'm dyslexic.
community, our Representative
list?
Paul Schmidt is our representative, who is also a farmer in our community.
That's
So his
wonderful.
legislative
So one of
research-
your own is going to
Yeah.
help take up
Yeah.
the challenge, which
you
is
know,
awesome.
and we're also trying to in that same token, kind of put the fire to people's feet in general. You know, we need more than just one representative and one senator supporting us. We need the
We
community.
need multiple, and that's the thing. Actually, this is what we've been trying to say. There was a working group back. That's what I told you about those 2 reports, right? And the governor appointed people to be in that working group. He put in a farm expert. Someone from the MDAR was involved in that. Us farmers were involved in that. I know there's currently a working group.
Hold
with
on, did you say
cultivators.
we farmers weren't
Us
involved with
farmers
that?
weren't involved.
Everybody else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Except the
So
farmers.
I got the report actually just this year. I finally was able to look at the report, and I've been sharing that report with the commissioners, asking them to review it, and seeing if we could have a continuous report for farmers, because we're like, where's the assistance? What are we doing?
We need a
but we're
continuing
actually
working
for a
group.
working group for us farmers.
Okay.
Because there's currently a working group going, but yeah, we're
Sounds to me
family
like
farmers.
you've got a lot of moneyed interest.
Yes, because
Putting
we
up
don't have
walls
money.
everywhere
It's
for
hard
you. It's
when you don't have
ridiculous.
money. It's hard to get things really pushed. Well, actually, no. I don't like to say that. It takes a lot of time, and it's been a long time us fighting this fight. At the end of the day, we know it takes like rallying the people. You got to get attention. You bring awareness to the problem, and yeah, when you don't have a bunch of money, it's about having your community backing you with your proposals and saying this is wrong, this is right. Let's do this.
This is wrong, this is right, and this is why we had you on Labor Talk today, because it's ridiculous. Again, you know, we're all from the same class, the working class.
Us as farmers, you know, these big organizations and nonprofits can spend the money to pay their lawyers to be there for 8, 12, 16 hours, however many days it requires for them to be there, where us as small farmers, we have to be in our field. So I can't just go and take 3 days and say, okay, I'm gonna go spend 3 days at the State House, because that's 3 days that's my fields aren't being tended to, my crops aren't being tended to, my community is not being supplied.
And
So
understand
that's
that
where
real
the
farmers-
community could come in and say, hey,
Yes.
I've got your back.
Exactly.
Yes,
I'll contact
and
my
understanding
rep.
like
Yes.
rural farmers, the struggle is it's so different from like in the urban area. We're talking about Wi-Fi connection. We're talking about water. We're talking all these
Yeah.
different
Right,
things
right.
that we have to struggle with.
Right.
Even in regards to this show, when we had talked to you about doing this show, you know, we would have loved to been able to do it at either one of our farms,
Right.
but we don't have electric at our farms. We don't have a building to go into that has, you know, heat and or lights. And, you know, it's like, because our farms are right now struggling to provide food for the community. So we can't focus on those things. We need to focus on how we're going to feed our community, how we're going to keep our farms afloat.
Well, we have
Well-
to focus on all of it, and that's what we realize. If we're not writing, if we as the people are not writing the regulations and shaping the regulation and talking to the legislators and doing this, then it will never
Nobody
work
is.
for us.
Who
so
can
as
capture
we're on the ground, we
what
have
we're
to.
trying to achieve better than us?
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Now, let me ask you a question, because farming, as you can tell me, it's a thankless job. I mean, it's a thankless job. What drives you? What made you fall in love with doing that kind of work? It fascinates me.
Farming actually is peace. It's also it's therapy. It's therapy. It's hard
Absolutely.
work. You
I
have
see
to
what
have
you're
a strong will, because when hits come, they come, and we don't have money just to pay someone to come in and fix up this or that, or
I better
you
learn
know
how to
what I
fix
mean?
it, or
We
it's
have
sitting.
to just do our thing. But it's a drive. It's sustainability to be able to grow your own food, to see something literally from nothing, the
Right.
progress from nothing, growing to become something, to test your soil and see the changes within your soil, to see the changes without even testing your soil, by seeing the mushrooms that are popping out and the different worms and things in your soil.
And you,
To
and,
the
and you go the
animals.
extra step to make sure the community, because you sell it to your community, is getting the best crop possible.
Exactly.
You don't spray
Once
it
you
with
have a fresh
insecticides.
strawberry,
And
yes, once you have strawberries from the farm and blueberries
You'll never
from the
go
farm,
back.
you don't want it from the grocery store.
you'll, that is the truth, the
yeah.
absolute truth, a big difference.
I
what,
know-
what made you, was it falling in love that made you fall in love with farming, or your husband had a history prior, you said, or?
I have a lot of serious chronic medical conditions.
Okay.
So my husband had worked in agriculture for a long time. We have a son who is autistic, who had a lot of sensory issues. So we always had large gardens, you know. And we found out about, through a recent report that had been put out, that in our particular community, that 1 in 5 children went to bed hungry every single day. And we were doing a Master Gardener program through our local community college. And we said, you know, we can complain about the food crisis in our community, or we can just like start a farm and see what happens.
Do something about it.
So we're a small self-funded, we were never generationally wealthy. You know, we worked our way up. My husband struggled through a lot of employment issues because of the unjust war of drugs and, you know, a minor nonviolent cannabis charge back in 1997. So we said, well, we can complain or we can do something, and we started our farm. So I do it because my husband does it because he loves to be elbow deep in the soil. Like that's his place.
That's his thing.
Nate's like,
Yeah, that's his place where he is him. You know, but I do it because I love the community outreach part of it. You know, we personally work a lot with local senior centers and children, you know, child care facilities, you know, small child care facilities. You know, we work a lot with students, you know, people, we do a lot
So
of work.
does agri-farming, do they come in and work with the kids in the
Wait,
community?
So no,
Do
this
they-
is what we want to say. All right.
I'm
so
sorry, that was a
agro-
flippant remark.
And then we tend to those not attached to systems. So
Yes.
we feed people that are experiencing homelessness or housing instability.
Right.
We feed families that are just struggling and
Yeah.
can't afford. We don't accept WIC or SNAP or any of that. We just give it for
Just
free.
give it to them.
And some people pay it forward, so that's awesome too. But
But for me, it's very gratifying when I get that opportunity to talk to a parent who, when you're economically oppressed, it's hard for your kid to say, I want to try that. And you're like, well, I only have $7 and I can't really spend 3 of it to try that when I know you're really not going to like it.
Right.
So it's nice for me to be able to say, no, you take that, you
Take it,
give
see
that
what he
child that
thinks.
opportunity, you
Absolutely.
do that. It's not about the finance, it's about you being connected to the farm, you being connected to your produce, and then having them come back the next week and say, my son actually ate that entire thing of hush cherries or whatever it was.
But that's what we're talking about. But
It's
how
the
do we
connection.
have that connection? All right, so this is what I'm talking about when corporations kind of stealing that from us as well. So when I talked about us being offered to work on, people's gardens, you know what I mean?
Sharecropping?
Yeah, sharecropping. We don't want to
Sorry,
sharecrop.
had
We
to
have
go
our
there.
own farms.
I don't
You
wanna do
could give
that.
us money. You're writing these grants. You could give that money to support us so that we can actually have something that's ours,
Right.
not attached to you. We own it.
Right.
And then let us tend to our crops.
We'll fly our own flag, not
exactly,
corporate
and do what we're doing
agro-business.
and educate people and share as we share without it being institutionalized and now it's yours and mine.
Right.
You know
Our
what I mean?
my farms during this last storm, you know, we've been building for years. We put in our fruit trees, you know, and during the first hurricane, we lost 3 of the peach trees. That was their first year they were going to start fruiting. You know, then the tropical storm came and flooded out all my fields, and we lost a bunch of crops. Then this last storm came and literally crushed our propagation house, a house that we built 5 years ago ourselves by hand, that we've grown over 500,000 plants in, that we've started 500, and it fell down. And these huge organizations and nonprofits, they're receiving all this money to support farmers, but they're not there to support me while we struggle to find out how are we going to rebuild that
But
greenhouse.
Right, that's because they
Because
don't
this
know.
corporate
Wait, but
system.
no, they do know. I want to call it
You
out
know,
bigger
they don't
than
know.
do
That's why I'm
know.
No,
glad
they
you
do.
folks came.
Yeah, our community doesn't know, but these
Yeah.
corporations know what they're doing, and
Yes, they do.
we've been calling them out on it. It's unacceptable for you to have our farms listed in your website as, oh, you're working with our farm, or support us, we support farmers without our permission, one.
Really?
And saying donate to us at the bottom of it. One, when you haven't supported our farm, we're not partnering, we're not friends. We're
And
not,
they listed your farms on the
people
website?
do this. People do this. And this isn't even
Organizations
just
and
our farms.
nonprofits
And
do.
we, when I say we support other farms, meaning we
understand.
buy from other farmers, older farmers that are near us, local farmers. And actually, one of the farmers was upset because she had a situation. And then I went online to do some research because she doesn't accept whip or snap either. But if she has extra, she's like, here, take it. You know what I mean? This is what she does. And someone left some coupons. Later on, she finds out she's on their website. She's on someone's website that she's not attached to. And as a farmer's market, she has a farm stand.
You know, that's a bogus presentation, and they should be called on it, which you just did. We've got 2 minutes to go. I'm glad you came. You educated me. I came into this and I told you both, I see the family farms going south. I don't know a lot about it. The thing about this is some people will look, well, they just want to grow cannabis. Are you guys going to get rich trying to grow cannabis? I mean, would that
we
just
could
be...
get rich trying to grow cannabis. And if we grow cannabis, you could get rich.
Right.
We don't, we're about regenerative agriculture. We're about our community. Like farming
Bigger picture.
is tending to our
Well,
community.
you'll have the closed
We're-
mind and say, oh, I
we're-
see what they want.
Well, lots of organizations are talking about, in general, in our industry, are talking about generational wealth. Us as farmers, we're looking for generational stability, and cannabis can be our pathway to that. You know, so our prime farmlands, which we lose acres every minute of prime farmland to solar and programs like that. And I love renewable energy,
Absolutely.
but our prime farmland shouldn't be taken away from food production for anything other than production of that land. You know, and we shouldn't have to give up our lands to solar
No.
to keep our farms
And
together.
we're clearly against that. We're not here just for
Right.
cannabis. I use cannabis medically. Excuse me. I use cannabis medically since I was 15 years old. But we are not here for cannabis. I just told you, in Kentucky, that makes me so sick. 80% of their farms taken over by hemp farms or cannabis farms. Like, what about our produce? Like,
Yeah.
what are we doing?
Right.
You know, we have
Well,
to have that diversity.
I just wanted to make clear to our audience that it's a bigger picture.
Yeah.
We're not going to give you all the details in a half hour. I hope we gave you some. I'd like to thank you both for coming today. If there's anything we can do in the future, call on us. I think it's wonderful. I think family farms should be sustained. And if you care about your neighbors, you're sitting there watching this, pick up your phone and reach out to a politician or to their websites, which you'll see on the screen at the end of the show. Listen, let's help each other. Let's make each other better. Thank you again for coming.
Thank you.